back to day 2 of Crimson Dawn, just a few days before Halloween. So sit back, enjoy, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's dive in. The Bushwackers, having just learned that their mysterious client, Nadja Solanka, is a vampire, are a bit stunned. But before they can process this revelation in full, Nadja tries to bring their attention back to the matter at hand.
Oh, wow. This took a weird turn. I can hardly believe it. And I'm the one that's seeing this.
Right, because dust bunnies possessing people is just prosaic.
I don't know what that means. Sorry, Miss...
Nadja Solanka.
Right, Miss Solanka. Can you provide more details on the footage? There really isn't much to go on.
What you saw, gentlemen, was footage from 1973 showing a brain transplant. During the war, the Nazis made a pact with my kind to defeat the Allies, but when we were less than forthcoming in assistance, they took matters into their own hands and began shipping hundreds of us to Germany to implant brains into mechanical monsters. The idea was if they could harness the feral power of vampires into mechanical suits, they would provide unstoppable. But many who saw where they became destroyed themselves rather than being used. So the Nazis built a control device. Nadja nods. When the war ended, many of the German scientists involved fled to Argentina. The leader of this grisly experiment, Isaac Obertaub, continued with his unholy machinations. Unholy? He had vampires deliberately infect people so they could create a steady supply of victims. However, by the 1970s, he'd become terminally ill and the project ostensibly halted. We thought that was the end, as he was the one who spearheaded and developed this enterprise with vigor.
So, what? Are we chasing phantoms?
Not quite. 2 years ago, several prominent coven leaders from throughout the world began vanishing. At first, we attributed this to vampire hunters and spiritual warriors, men of the church and mercenaries. But as the rates of disappearances increased, we began looking into the matter and learned that this vile experiment had been restarted. Who by? Some suspect Obertaub, but given his lifespan, he ought to be dead by now. Others suspect it is one of his followers, preparing for some forthcoming conflict and needs foot soldiers. An army of robotic vampires. Weird.
It's not as far-fetched as you'd think, especially given a lot of countries are now looking for that edge.
Wow. Scary. Oi! What do you believe? Obertaub is a man of reserve and will, Bushwacker. If you could easily transplant others' brains into this metal monsters, who's to say he hasn't done it to himself?
Right. So we're looking for a brain in a jar with a giant swastika on the side.
Nadja gives him an incredulous look. Where exactly do we start? The last report of a disappearance was somewhere in New Orleans from the House of Thelema, just a week ago. I recommend checking there first. You may find a clue to lead you in the right direction.
Anyone in particular? Like a name?
Nadja hands him a piece of paper, which Lee examines. The victim was Remy Lavigne, one of the counsels for the coven. He had been part of the task force investigating the project when Obertaub was alive, but couldn't find the man apart from a few associates. Turned? Unlikely. In any case, he was the closest to have any actual intel. So it would stand to reason that he would be the one they'd kidnap.
Whoever they are.
Lee, Luca, and JJ exchange looks. We'll do our best. Nadja grabs his hand. Please. We don't have much time. We'll do what we can. As she leaves, Lee looks over at Luca.
What the hell was that?
What?
That moment. Care to share with us?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Alright. Shall I take a gander that you accepted this ludicrous case because maybe you have the hots for her?
What? No. Don't be ridiculous.
Did she ever mention anything about vampires' brains being transplanted into metal machines before tonight?
Well... no.
Ha! Point proven! You so want her! It's all over your face!
Look, now that we have taken on the case, can we focus on where to begin our line of inquiry?
Alright, lover boy.
He looks at the sheet.
She said one of them was investigating this when he vanished, right? I mean, if you're gonna eliminate anyone, might as well be the guy who's literally got his claws into your business.
She did mention New Orleans in the Temple of Thelema. Alright, so we start there and... What now?
Do you see the way he looked at her when she touched him? She's got icy cold hands, but the way he was looking back at her, you'd have thought otherwise.
Alright, you really gotta let that go, man.
Sorry. It's just that you don't often see people fall head over heels for vampires. You know?
It cuts to a street in New Orleans. It's oddly quiet with barely a noise, save for the occasional barking of a dog in the distance. They walk into an alleyway and find the address and enter the building. They see it is tidily made as Lee walks over to the desk and looks for any clues. This guy that Nadja mentioned, Remy, she said he'd been keeping tabs on Obertaub's work for years and years.
Yeah, and he hasn't left much in terms of his findings.
Well, he probably digitized it.
Do you know how long vampires live? He's probably got the papers in one of those manila folders with the paper clips and shit. Being old school, it'd be like a CIA dossier from the 50s. I mean, wouldn't be shocked if you still had those large computers you see from the Apollo missions.
Maybe it was.
True.
JJ walks over to the portrait. They can see the figure is a severe-looking man dressed in an Edwardian outfit. The others look at the portrait.
He sure is charming.
JJ walks over and begins to finger the picture frame. Lee stares at him.
What are you doing?
Well, it's one of the oldest tropes in film and TV. The portrait's hiding a safe behind it.
Really? Maybe he's hidden it somewhere else.
The portrait falls to the ground and they see, to Lee's bemusement, a safe. JJ smiles as he points. Told ya.
God, it's like people just don't learn. Great. How do we open it?
As if on cue, the safe door opens, and they peer inside to see it's been emptied. Wow. Another trope come to fulfillment.
So, where do we go from here?
Hey, fellas? Look. They see a trail behind a door. They follow into another alleyway where it stops. They exchange nervous glances. As they do so, they hear a screech and look up to see a metallic gargoyle with a green dome atop its head. The creature spreads its wings and dives into the alley, intending to attack them. At the last second, the trio get out of the way and it crashes into the ground, leaving a crater. They peer down the manhole. Alright guys, after it, that's our lead. As they scrum down the manhole, Lee remains standing there, looking around.
Jeez, guys. I don't know. I mean, it's the sewer. It's dark. It smells of... well, you know what it smells like, Luca. It mainly came from you.
When he gets no response, he stands there for a few more seconds.
Shit.
It cuts to the sewer where Luca and JJ, wearing face masks, slosh around the muck and mire when they get to a T-juncture. Lee joins them and looks down, making a face. He is also annoyed to see he is the only one wearing shorts while the others are wearing trousers.
Dude, I think I'm gonna puke.
Hey, man. It reeks down here. You better put on your mask.
I don't have one.
Oh.
Oh? Is that all you're gonna say? Oh?
Didn't you bring a mask with you when we left for New Orleans?
No, Luca, I didn't. I thought we'd be pursuing people across Bourbon Street, ride boats, or take a fan boat over the marshes. But I never thought I'd be knee-deep in shit in the bowels of the city.
Whoa. That is poor planning, dude. Seriously. Alright, you want to take the left and I'll do the right? Yep. As they split, Lee looks around, holding his hands over his nose and mouth. He lifts his left leg to see covered in human effluence and other stuff.
God almighty, I'm gonna have to burn these now. And I love these sneakers. Had them since junior year of high school.
Lucas slowly wades through the muck when he hears a low roar. He stops and looks up. He then hears sloshing, growing closer and closer, and he turns to see Lee behind him.
Wow. This tunnel goes on for miles.
Quiet! I hear something. As they listen, there's another low growl. Luca rushes ahead as Lee sighs and follows suit. Lee tries to follow, but Cece is stuck. As he attempts to lift a foot out, he wobbles and falls backward into the river of effluence. He emerges a few seconds later, now covered in the treasures of the sewer. They eventually find themselves in an abandoned riverbed as dawn breaks. They walk over to see JJ, who greets them. It's been crouched there for 10 minutes. Didn't even move or anything. It's like it didn't know or cared. I was just standing there. They walk over to the hunched over gargoyle. It looks up and they see a brain inside the glowing green dome. Remy Lavinia? The creature lowers its head. It sees its reflection in the puddle and then screeches again as if enraged at what it's become against its will. It then proceeds to smash its head against a concrete block. The Bushwackers do nothing, but watch as the dome finally cracks, exposing the brain. The creature staggers up and begins walking towards the sunlight, and smoke emanates from the now destroyed dome. The brain bursts into flames, and after giving one last scream, the mechanical monster falls over. They hear sloshing and turn to see Lee standing there, dripping in the glory of the underworld. What happened to you?
I'll give you 3 guesses, and none of them are wrong.
He lifts his leg up.
I could literally do shit. What's going on here?
Well, we found the kidnapping victim Nacho was talking about, but he took matters into his own hands.
Great. So, what now?
It cuts back to Lee's apartment where the mechanical vampire is laid out on Lee's dining room table. Luca and JJ are looking over it with a disgruntled Lee glaring at them.
Any other place. Any other place would do just fine. Why is it always my apartment that's gotta be used for this?
The other two aren't listening. Lee, frustrated, walks up to the bathroom, slamming the door in frustration. What's that? Luca, using tweezers, pulls out a rubber strip from the casing. That, JJ, would be human flesh. Which mean vampire? Well, vampires are technically human. Oh, I see, right. From closer look at the hydraulic system, it appears to be a hybrid of mechanical and organic. See, the vampire still feeds on blood, but this thing here extracts the protein from the blood, cycles it through the filter, and uses it to power the organic bits. You mean the brain? Well, that's really the only organic bit in this entire machine. But from what I've seen, this is a crude operation. How so? They look up to see Nod just standing there. If I had to guess, whoever did this job was either careless or just plain sadistic. Instead of carefully extracting the brain, they appear to have sawn through the skull, taking bits of flesh and bone with it, stuck it in the case, and... well... ah. I see. And it appears the hydraulic system itself was faulty. It wasn't operating at full capacity. So the vampire wasn't able to extract sufficient nutrients from the blood. Correct. He was in a frenzied state, poor devil. He was starving and couldn't think straight. He reaches into the machine and pulls out a device clotted in blood. Not to mention that, too, that the blood leaked out from the tubes and just got into the circuitry. No wonder it went plumb loco. Nigel walks over and examines the machine. How did he... die? He smashed its head into a concrete block and walked into the sun, where its brain went poof. Yeah, hardware malfunction. That may not be the only reason why it went mad. I think he was intentionally doing it, as if to avoid any further fate for whatever it was crafted to be. By its creator or master? Not just solemnly nods. The question I have is, what does it all mean? It means someone has indeed revived Obertab's experiments, and all for nefarious but age-old purpose. War. Yeah. It also confirms another thing. There's a clientele in need of this monstrosity. Or a bunch of clientele. Clienteles? Right. Right. He turns to Najo. But why you lot? Surely they could have gone with anyone else. The vampire is the ultimate predator, capable of great strength, stealth, and speed, but still limited in some ways. By merging it with cybernetic implants, they hope to create a very deadly weapon that, in the wrong hands, could wreak havoc on the world. They? Who's they? As if on cue, the machine sits up, its eyes glowing red. It grabs Naja by the throat, and she struggles to break free. Luca tries to wrench her free, but the robot opens its maw. We have her... As they struggle, Lee emerges from the bathroom.
Ooh. Well, 20 minutes of showering is not going to get the stench of shit. I might have to try bathing in one of those geothermal pits or something. What the hell's going on here?
There's a beep, and it cuts to the apartment where we see a giant explosion. As the smoke clears, we see Luca and JJ crouched behind a ruined couch and Lee lying on the table. Slowly, everyone gets up and Lee staggers forward. He looks around.
What the hell?
He turns to the others.
Seriously? Guys?
Everyone okay? I think so.
Dude! Look at this place! It's...
Blown to smithereens?
Funny, JJ. Oh, you've missed your calling in life.
He kicks a broken armchair in frustration.
You know, with all this happening, I might as well buy a house.
I mean, you can do that, but it'll probably just get blown up also. As Lee scowls, Luca looks around. Guys? Where's Nadja? JJ and Lee check everywhere but don't see anything. They walk over to the gaping hole in the wall made by the explosion and stare up at the night sky.